Good evening, everyone. My name is George. I'm from the Rakuten Global PR team, and I would like to kick off tonight's fireside chat. Tonight, we are delighted to welcome Brad, the COO of OpenAI, who is joining us for this event. Brad is joined by Ting, the CDO of Rakuten, for this conversation on the topic of what's next in Gen AI. Without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Ting.
Thank you, George. Welcome, everybody, to be at Rakuten, especially Brad and OpenAI team. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. And thank you for all the audience to joining here, as well as many people on the live stream. So, Brad, welcome to Rakuten. Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk a little bit about AI, and also I'm going to ask you, Brad, some personal question as well, if you
Feel
don't
free.
mind. Okay. And you are the Chief Operating Officer of OpenAI. But we met in San Francisco. We also met in Tokyo multiple times. I feel like your influence at OpenAI is way more than Chief Operating Officer. Can you tell us a bit about your role at OpenAI?
Sure. And thank you again for having us. It's so wonderful to be here. And we recently opened an office in Tokyo. And so now we really feel like we have a true partnership here at home in Tokyo. Look, OpenAI is we're a relatively young company. We're a startup still at heart. And we really, there's always one person at a startup that has to do kind of all the things. And so my role at OpenAI started with really kind of running everything that wasn't research. And it's since evolved mostly to focus on our partnerships, our go-to-market, and finance. Still, I own finance. But really, the way we look at it is, as OpenAI starts to become more of a global company, as the models that we release start to impact more areas in the world, we really, at our core, are a partnerships company. And it's a company that is going to work only with the world's participation in the work we do and making sure that AI has a good outcome for everyone, as we see in our mission. And so my job really is to be that extension out into the world, to invite people into the process at OpenAI, give people an understanding of what we do, what we care about. And if I can do that well, that's me doing my job. So
that's fantastic. That's a big job. You mentioned that OpenAI recently opened an office in Japan, and you also released a Japan custom model. Can you tell us about why Japan? Why Japan is special to OpenAI?
sure. So Japan, has long been a fascination for us. It's a market that has a very rich history of adopting technology, of new technology, of innovating on critical technology and critical manufacturing. And so we look at AI very much through that lens of it's a new technology where it's critical infrastructure, and ultimately it's going to have to deliver real value for people in ways that transcends what current software does. And so Japan was an area that we thought was, well, first of all, we felt a lot of demand from the market for OpenAI here. Of course, we have very high use of ChatGPT. We have 2 million people here using ChatGPT every week, which is astounding. And we wanted to be really close to where we felt we had an opportunity to work very closely with potential customers, with users, with developers. And so we're very honored to be here. We're very humbled to be here. We still have a lot to learn. And we're going to make a lot of efforts to improve the technology here in Japan for Japanese use cases. But we're very excited. And as my colleague Nagasaki-san has said, this is day one for us.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I look forward to more opportunity to work with you to create value for the Japan society. I think you mentioned that OpenAI is a startup, and also, as many of you know, Rakuten is also very much value entrepreneurship and innovation. And we want to create value for the society. And in that regard, I feel like OpenAI and Rakuten have a lot of things in common. So OpenAI has went through tremendous growth. When we started working together, I remember OpenAI only had a couple of hundred people now, but still a small company. How many people you have now?
We're over 1,000 today.
Over 1,000. Okay, all right. That's like a growing 4 times when we started working together, but still relatively small company, right? And I wonder, like, how can OpenAI move so fast? Just to bring, groundbreaking innovation to the world and millions of people using it. I was at OpenAI Dev Day last November, And everything was sort of like we talk about in the industry, but I was still amazed at the speed of OpenAI deliver. So what's your secret sauce?
Well, there's definitely a few things, so it's never one thing. I would say if there's one uniting thing, it's our mission. So we're very fortunate. We started the company early on with a very core mission of being able to go build AGI and being able to ensure that the benefits of AGI were very broadly distributed and that the technology was built and deployed very safely. And so there's this uniting factor in that mission that I think not only motivates a lot of the people that we recruit, all the people we recruit, but it actually really dictates also our roadmap. And so the way that we actually look at planning, both from a research perspective and from a product perspective, it's this very focusing function to say, well, does this thing advance the mission? And if it doesn't advance the mission, then it tends to get deprioritized. And the things that we feel do advance the mission tend to get prioritized. So that's definitely a big factor. And I would say the second thing for us is everyone thinks of OpenAI as a research organization. Actually, we are a research organization, but we're a research and engineering organization. And we learned early on the value of really, really strong engineering. And so the systems we build, at the scale we build these systems, they're tremendously large, they're tremendously complex, and they're only getting larger. And so being able to have complementary systems infrastructure, systems engineering to complement the pure scale of the research and the models that we train is absolutely critical to being able to move fast.
Yeah, that's very important. My takeaway is focus and also research and engineering, right? And I think both at Rakuten and OpenAI, we share the mission of bringing value to the society. I think it's more than just the models. In order for people, millions of people, in order to benefit from the latest model, it takes the engineering, but also more importantly, tools. And today we have a lot of people working closely with merchant. I was fortunate to join the Rakuten Merchant of the Year Award in San Francisco, and I talked to a lot of small business owners. And some of them only have 20 people, but they deliver so unique product to their customers. But they are so busy. They have so many things to work on, logistic, ordering, and inventory. I wanted to talk to them about AI, but like this is too much. They just need a tool they can use, right? So I would say, in order for the technology to be useful, we need to do more than just models. Do you think OpenAI is just a model, the best model company, or is there a platform around it?
Well, it starts for sure with being able to train the best models. I think if we can't continue to move state of the art forward in building the best models, then the rest of it doesn't matter much. But second to that, and very much what we're starting to learn as we engage with companies around the world, is the importance of building great interfaces and being able to translate to these models what you want and want them to do for you. And that's going to become increasingly important as the models become more capable and more capable of solving more complex challenges. So if you think about having models as these assistants, their job is to help you. And if they can help you with a very narrow task, that's okay. But what about in the future when they can help you with a complex task? They can actually solve a problem that might take you an hour or 2 hours. But you want to be able to instruct that model to do something very specific and give it feedback on its work and redirect it and guide it in its output. And so how you engage with those models and the interface that we build through which you can engage with those models is going to become increasingly important.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I realized through my interaction with OpenAI is we want to think big, and also we want to state very concrete, right? Like especially for Rakuten, we are here to deliver concrete values to our business partners and our customers. And I want to get your thoughts on like what are the practical applications that we can use AI technology today, and what are the things that are around the corner that we should get ready for?
Well, the applications today, there's too many to count. And even today, we still actually consider the technology to be in its infancy. We're still very much in the early days of this technology. I don't think we've really seen fully what this technology is capable of, and I think the rate at which it improves will surprise us. That being said, even today, there's this diversity of applications from personal consumer use cases all the way through to very real business use cases. I think one that I really love is actually how Rakuten has thought a lot about building tools for merchants. There's something very special about aligning the capabilities that the technology has to enable people, to give them, make them more productive, make them more efficient, and also the ability that Rakuten has to take that capability set and that tool set and bring it to merchants where, as you mentioned, merchants have a million things to do every day. Running a business is really, really hard, but it's really important that merchants exist. Like, they're critical to the fabric of our society. And so how do you marry tools and the capabilities that AI brings to the needs that merchants have when it comes to running a business and operating a business at growing scale? We think that that's a tremendous opportunity and actually is one of my favorite use cases.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Actually, speaking of Rakuten Merchant, do you mind showing the Rakuten AI slide? And back in, some of you know, Mickey wrote a book some years ago called The Business Do. And one of the things that he mentioned is the importance of human touch. Actually, the previous slide, please. So at Rakuten, we believe how we should augment human creativity with the power of AI, like human and AI working together. Brad, I remember just last year we were exchanging texts with each other, and we talk about what are the scenario we should zoom in, and you mentioned that this for enterprise. It turns out that that's the unique angle that I was also thinking about. Many of us at Rakuten are very passionate about helping small business, and I was talking to James as well, and he also shared the same passion of helping small business to thrive. And in Japan, in particular, and unlike United States, there's still a lot of unique shops. As you walk around, small street, there's a lot of unique shops that represents the variety of the society, right? So instead of lots of chain stores. So what are your thoughts on the enterprise services, and how did you decide to zoom into like AI for enterprise services?
Well, the enterprise is interesting because it's kind of like the individual complexity that any small business has to deal with, just blown up to gargantuan scale. And so as you scale a business up, that complexity just kind of grows with scale. But I think fundamentally a lot of the challenges still exist. They just exist at greater scale. So we see a lot of that same opportunity. So for example, how do you make your business processes more efficient? When you hire employees, how do you make them more productive? When you build products and services for your customers, how do you improve the quality of those products and services? How do you provide better support to your customers? These are kind of the same problem sets that small businesses have and larger businesses have and enterprises have. It's just a question of how and where you're deploying those tools and in what format. So we spent a lot of time actually starting with the first is thinking about working with very small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and also a lot of developers that were building tools for these businesses. But as we actually started to see where there was desire for adoption of the technology, we realized actually there's an amazing opportunity in the enterprise for a lot of the same reasons that we were seeing a lot of success enabling much smaller companies.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think one thing I realized, in order for the AI model to work the best, we have to leverage the human knowledge. And that's one reason we decided to zoom into the enterprise services, because we can leverage all of your best domain knowledge here, and especially the people in this room and a lot of people in the industry, right? How can we combine the best knowledge you have in your category, whether it's a furniture or fashion, and with the AI model, so we can kind of interact and integrate human knowledge, not just human knowledge, but expert knowledge in each domain with the AI model. So you mentioned the variety of what this AI model capable of doing. And that's actually one thing I found amazing as well. I remember many years ago, I worked at e-commerce startup, and I was doing classifications. I personally did a lot of labeling in order to provide training data for the classifiers. But now the model is so capable to do a variety of things. Like the other day, I was doing my tax return, April 15th, US tax day. I was using ChatGPT as my tax consultant. But I think one thing amazed me is the decision is like how the company like OpenAI to go big, to train a universal model, right? That takes a lot of machines, takes a lot of guts, just invest millions of dollars to create a universal model, right? So how was that decision made? Like what are the contexts, what are the factors that contribute to that decision for OpenAI to invest in a universal model versus specific model?
Well, it comes back to our mission. And our mission ultimately is to build this generally intelligent system. We think the demarcation of general intelligence is you have a system that's broadly capable of learning. And so you can point it at any arbitrary task. And its learning algorithm actually allows it, without prior knowledge of that task or without prior knowledge of that data or the surrounding context, to reason about what it would take to solve the task or to provide an output that's useful to you based on your instruction. And so the way we look at it is almost like we want to get to that point. And if you get to that point, then there's kind of no reason to have these hyper-specialized small models where you're just trying to solve for the capability gap and the knowledge gap that the model has in its current form. And so it's kind of almost like we think a world where there's this like kind of balkanized use of models where you use 1,000 models that each are for a specific task is kind of contra this idea of a generally intelligent model that can actually learn how to do many tasks. That being said, we do think that there's places where that general model should know how to offload tasks to more specific models. So maybe in like a medical domain, for example, you may have a model that's hyper-specialized in a given domain that's trained on specific data that understands specific context that the general model may not have. So the same way that you have like a chief neurologist at a hospital who may be the best overall brain doctor that works with a set of physicians that underneath them that are more junior but maybe specialists in different areas and can offload some of the work each to those physicians. There may be a similar thing here where you have models that are actually orchestrating workflows across different models in addition to being able to be useful for themselves.
Yeah, actually, one thing I learned at Rakuten from Mickey in particular, and he said innovation is about making connections. So when we have a general model can synthesize the data across domain, and new innovation will sparkle. So you mentioned medical, and actually Rakuten Medical is pushing the envelope of innovation as well and curing cancers, and we are eager to apply the latest GenAI technology to help patient and save lives. So I want to ask you, Brad, like what's around corner? Like what's coming next in terms of technology innovation, business innovation? What are your thoughts?
Sure. I'll answer this as best I can. But I would say the way we look at it is ultimately the models have to be able to go off and solve more complex tasks. So if you think about it, today you can use ChatGPT, for example, to solve fairly basic things. It can help you summarize text. It can help with translation. It can help you write something, give you an idea of how to write something new. But those are very narrow tasks, and they only represent small percentages of what comprises a total workflow. And so the work that we do every day is actually much more complex and involves actually critical thinking across a lot of different areas to integrate each of those subtasks into a whole specific workflow and an output. And so how do you actually improve the model's ability to be assistive across that entire workflow and actually to start to help you think through how to integrate through each of those tasks to actually come up with new knowledge, new ideas, solve complex problems. It can be almost like an assistant to you in actually going and solving problems versus solving tasks.
That's fantastic, and I see totally like the analogy of how the organization functions, right? There's different people have different specialty and expertise. It's like a multiple agent working together, right? Each leveraging their strengths, and we connect their knowledge together and accomplish a bigger task.
That's a great way to think about it. It really does actually work kind of like an organization. You rely on teammates today to help you do your work. I think similarly, everyone will really rely on fairly high-performing AIs to help them do their work. And those AIs almost like become smarter and smarter teammates.
Right.
And so they help you more and more.
Yeah, fantastic. So as you know, when the teams of different personality and different expertise work together, and we need to ensure the overall output and quality. What are your thoughts on improving the reliability and testability of AI models?
It's something we take very seriously. One of the nice things about working in this field is you always get a very predictable rate of improvement. And so every time we train a new model, that model gets predictably better with scale, which is really a great gift of AI if you think about it. And so one of the things that's a byproduct of that is as we train a bigger and better model, the model's rate of hallucination, for example, should come down. its ability to give more detailed answers that are more specific, where it can cite its sources and give specific examples as to why it answered the question the way it did, goes up. And its ability also to use other tools and use those tools effectively to incorporate new data into its answer is also improved. And so just by scaling the model up, you'll actually get a lot of benefit in the regard of what you mentioned. Now, also, the other thing is, how do you use the tool? And so one of the things we spend a lot of time with customers on, especially in the enterprise, is thinking about using these tools not necessarily as databases. There would be the world's slowest, most expensive databases if we use databases, but really using them actually to do basically some form of kind of incorporated knowledge or retrieved knowledge. So actually pointing them at a new problem with new data and new information, and leveraging their baseline knowledge and capability and understanding to go off and actually think about, okay, well, how do I incorporate this new information given a request into a problem that satisfies the user's request? And so it's not necessarily drawing on their innate knowledge so much as it's actually leveraging their ability to reason about new knowledge to answer a question.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And today, I figured a new way to use ChatGPT. You know, I don't know how many of you noticed today Stanford University published a new report, AI Index. So I want to quickly get a summary and send it to Mickey, which is on the flight to Italy. I asked ChatGPT, please extract the top 10 tech takeaways from this many pages of report, very long. Then I asked, can you check? I just want the exact text. Don't summarize it. Don't paraphrase. I want the exact text from the top 10 takeaway from the report. Then blah blah blah. Give me the output. So I still wasn't sure, because I wanted to be precise. I don't want hallucination when I send a summary to my boss. Then I asked ChatGPT, can you check actually the word count? Make sure the output of your output is exactly the same word count as the original report. Then you blah 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 and send me the word count. So I think the new trend is maybe we can actually use the chatbot, to observe the output of itself and test itself. That's kind of one way, right? As you mentioned, checking the new knowledge and help it to observe and stuff. So
yeah, one of the most we think promising use cases in the enterprise actually is to do quality assurance. So actually using models to effectively a quality filter on their own output. And so we have a couple companies we work with that do this very effectively, but you can actually layer these models in different ways that almost helps ensure quality by just leveraging their own ability to check themselves, which is a use case that we work with a lot of companies on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So maybe Brett, let me switch gear a little bit and talk about some of your career background. So on your LinkedIn profile, I noticed that you majored in economics and history. So a lot of the people, I think economics is still a very popular major in Japan. How can non-technical people get into AI or technical area? Like, how did you get into tech?
I got into tech because I went to college in the middle of the financial crisis. And so I didn't know that if I would have a job coming out of college, because I didn't know if we'd have a financial sector coming out of college. And so I started to think, where is the future going to be? And it wasn't clear to me that it was going to be necessarily in the financial sector. And I also went to college at a time when there were a bunch of startups that were starting to grow and grow very quickly. So startups like Uber, Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, many others. And I was fascinated by these companies and how fast they were growing, and these were services that I was starting to use every day. And so increasingly, I kind of looked at the sector almost, I guess, from an economics perspective. And one of the amazing things about technology as a sector, about software as a sector, is there's a zero marginal cost distribution. And so you create a piece of a tool once, and now anyone can use it at scale around the world instantly. And it costs you zero to distribute it. And that's an amazing economic property of software. And that's why these companies can get really big really quickly. And then you start to think about that actually as it applies to AI. And this is really what I started to do as I looked at OpenAI, is you say, okay, well, what if you actually have now software that can almost be kind of an assistant-like, right? It's actually very personal to you, and it gets better with scale. And so you get this kind of economy of scale, basically, in AI that is a very natural byproduct of training models in the field. And so I guess I can kind of say in some ways I always looked at technology through kind of an economic lens. And I think that fundamentally is kind of like where my interest comes from. Is I think technology is fundamentally the most disruptive force for economic progress and economic growth that we know of. And continuing to push innovation forward is absolutely critical for the success of the world, for global prosperity. And the properties that software has are really they're gifts. Amazingly, that we have this thing that can be so contributing to the quality of life of every person in the world is nothing short of remarkable. And so I thought that was amazing and inspired me to want to be in the field.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think I learned something today. The zero margin of skill, right? I hope AI can also be a tool to everyone to scale what you can do. So it's so we can enable every one of you to do more. And so, but at the same time, Brad, as people looking at AI, some folks may be worried about how is it going to change my job, and is it AI gonna kill my job or increase my productivity? What are your thoughts on the economic around job creation or job loss?
Well, I have a very economics answer to this, which gets into the lump of labor fallacy and other things that I'll spare you all because it's way too boring. But I think fundamentally the way we look at it is these are tools, and it'll change the shape of work. It'll change how you engage with machines, how you engage with computers. It'll change how you process information. It'll change how productive you are. It'll change the capabilities you have. So even someone today, for example, who isn't technical, now all of a sudden has a tool that makes them basically as good as a junior software engineer at solving coding problems, which is really a remarkable thing if you think about it. Like the fact that now I don't think we've quite internalized as a species the fact that almost everyone in this room is now a software engineer. If you wanted to be a software engineer, you don't have to know how to write a line of code, but you actually have basically a 24-hour assistant that you can access virtually for free, who can write you as much code as you can dream up. And that's only going to get better, and it's going to get better in a way that's accessible. So it's not going to become cost prohibitive, it's going to be accessible cost-wise to anyone in the world. And so I think there's just going to be this tremendously large kind of overarching theme of growth and of opportunity. It will change, I think, fundamentally, like I said, how we do work and how we grow companies and how we build products. But I think we'll adapt pretty well. And overall, I'm very positive and optimistic about the future for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think the new AI tool can level the playing field, like you said. Everyone is a software engineer. You can write code, and because you have this assistant with you, right, to generate code. But at the same time, I would say it kind of raise the bar. If you don't have the tool, you are likely to fall behind, right? So it's very important that everybody learn the latest tool, so you can have the best assistant for you to get more done. So at Rakuten, we're also enabling people to do more with the best tool. So I hope everyone can benefit. So anything you want to add? Anything on top of what we talk about? We kind of touch a variety of topic and career growth and technology. So about AI and anything you want to add?
I don't think so. You hit the point that I would have ended on, which is the importance of appreciating the tools and learning about how these systems work, learning what they're really good at, also learning what they're not so good at, and thinking about developing an appreciation for the rate of change. And so knowing what is GPT-3 good at, and what is GPT-4 good at, and what's GPT-3 not so good at, and what's GPT-4 now good at, and what will the next version of the model improve at, and starting to just get a feel for how things are changing. They're changing really fast. Even inside OpenAI, it's dizzying. It's a lot of change, but it's really exciting. And so we're excited to be part of this. And like I said at the beginning of this, our hope is that we really are a company that can kind of bring people into the process of developing the technology, into the process of distributing its benefits, and then also thinking about how to do so safely is core to our mission. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's open up the floor to see anyone in the audience have questions.
Thank you, Brad and Ting. Yes, we'd like to start the Q&A session. Please raise your hand if you have a question. The gentleman on the front row, thank you.
So thank you so much for fantastic talk today. And then I believe that you have already been seeing a lots of use cases of the generative AI technologies. And then I would like to know what is the most interesting use cases of Gen AI, and then how these technologies change the human lives. Could you share your thoughts with us?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of use cases. Some are very simple, by the way, and some are actually they're very elegant. So one that I love is a good friend of mine recently had a baby, and he was very nervous. It was his first baby, and he used ChatGPT basically to learn how to become a parent. So like even something as simple as like how often do you take your kid to the doctor, and like what are the things that I need to buy to have a baby? Like these are very like simple questions, but like you don't think about it until you actually have to think about it. And of course, then by the time you have your second, you have everything you need. But for a first-time parent, you know, it's like this very emotional human thing. And to have something that is kind of this assistive technology, and he was telling me how he started becoming a paying user because of how often he was using it. You know, it's this like very heartwarming thing. But really, we think that the kind of more ambitious use cases, there's so many out there, and one that we really think is starting to integrate multimodality. So these models now have this amazing ability not just to generate text or understand text, but actually to think across a lot of different modalities. So images, audio, video with the release of Sora, eventually speech with the voice engine, which we recently released. And so how do you start to bring these capabilities together to create things that are entirely new? So now you can talk to software, right? Now you can talk to a computer. Now a computer can completely understand an image the way that a human can understand an image. It can generate a video just on a text command. So there's something very profound there that I think we haven't quite grokked, and we're starting to see companies kind of incorporate all of these capabilities kind of into their applications. It's very slowly, it's still very experimental, but the companies that have really nailed it, we think those are some of the most impressive applications.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, the gentleman in the front row, please, in the grey jacket.
Thank you very much for your talk. I have one question. In many industries worldwide, including in Japan, the adoption of AI technology is still not fully realized. Some companies hesitate to integrate AI. From your perspective as CEO of OpenAI, a leader in democratization AI globally, what strategy and vision do you believe should be introduced to enhance AI adoption and proficiency in Japan industries? Moreover, what message would you like tell to Japanese business person, particularly those in Rakuten Group, to negative and navigate and harness AI technology more efficiency?
Yeah, you know, we talk to a lot of companies, and I always say to our team, our job in some ways is not really to sell anyone anything. We're almost more like therapists, because companies come and talk to us, and they kind of sit there and they have this anxiety, and you can tell that there's this real pressure they feel to figure out how to integrate AI into their business. And I think that the hardest thing is they just don't know where to get started. And we empathize with that. There's a lot of happening, and businesses are complex. The technology is brand new, and so finding ways to integrate it and feeling the pressure to integrate it, it's very overwhelming. We tend to guide companies though toward something of a kind of a different approach, which is a couple things. So one is to actually don't start necessarily trying to solve every problem in your business with AI. Start to solve a few that really matter and be very focused in how you do that. So customer support is a good example of every company has a customer support problem, and you can start to see where the model's capabilities actually match to the capabilities required to do customer support in your current format, and then also required to do it in a slightly better format. And so, for example, we worked with Klarna very closely. Everyone probably knows Klarna, a financial services company based in Sweden. And they were able to actually incorporate GPT-4 into their customer support stack in a way that actually saves them a lot of time. It reduced the time spent on tickets by a factor of 5. And that was actually a very simple implementation, but they just were very focused on where they wanted to deploy it and very intentional. The other thing is actually to give access to your workforce. So a lot of companies make the mistake of thinking we're going to do a very measured rollout of AI technology in the workplace. We're going to give only a small number of people access to the best tools, and we're going to do this very slow and iterative kind of expansion of AI of access to AI technology. And we think that's wrong. We actually think that it's really important that everyone has access to the technology. We think it's really important that people have access to the best models, and they can see how the best models compare to smaller models, for example, and where they work and where they don't work. We think it's important that people start to appreciate, like I said, the rate of progress in the field and knowing how the models improve. There's actually a lot of learning also in how to talk to the models. So how do you actually prompt the model to get it to give you a response that you want? How do you use all the surrounding tools that the model has, the ability to browse the internet, the ability to generate images, the ability to do data analysis? So there's a learning curve here. And I think one of the most important things that any company can do is just giving access to their people to the best product and starting to just let them experiment and figure out where it can add value. So we think it's as simple as that. In practice, we know it's not. But we've tried to work with as many companies as we can to propagate some of these learnings. And in Japan, this really is going to be a big push that we make here, is helping companies think about how to incorporate AI along these tracks.
That's a great discussion. I want to build on that. My takeaway from what you said is we need to go big but solve specific problem. I definitely feel that when I talk with the OpenAI team, the conversation was like keep pushing into clear but specific, or maybe sometimes narrower use cases, so we can solve concrete problem. You mentioned customer support. I want to ask you a difficult question. So customer support, the chatbot existed for a long time. And often in the past, we program chatbot like with a very specific dialogue flow, right? If you get this question, you do this. But in the past, chatbot kind of didn't really meet the user expectation. In our own measurement, our old style chatbot barely meet 50% of the user intent. So now we have this GenAI tool, which is very universal, very capable of understanding variety of user intent. But on the other hand, it's less precise. When we're doing customer support, including giving user refund, there's specific business rules we need to follow, right? How do you see these kind of two approach kind of converge and actually solve customer support problem?
Customer support is probably our favorite problem to solve. It's one we get asked the most about. Here's my take on this area. A lot of companies come in asking us to solve customer support with AI. They want to automate customer support. And we think that's the wrong approach. The way that we like to think about customer support is how do you change the shape of how you deliver customer support? And so what I mean by that, and I know you're confused, and I'll explain in a second. What I mean by that is don't think about trying to automate customer support so that your customers never engage with a human, but look at it on the basis of your customers have a diverse set of needs that they're emailing in or chatting in about. And some of those things actually, so first of all, how good is your insight into what those things are? These models are actually really, really good at doing classification, and they actually really deeply understand very unclear intent. So you can have an email that's written into customer support that's very poorly written, for example. And these models can still have a kind of good, deep understanding of what exactly that user really wants from you as a provider of a service. And so that's the first place to do it, is how do you actually think about applying GPT-4, for example, just to classification of your inbound ticket volume? The second thing would be, okay, well, not every customer support ticket is created equal. Some of them could be very high severity issues. So my account was hacked, or I need a refund, or sensitive information was exposed, and I need to make sure that that information gets deleted. Those are high severity issues. If you can classify them correctly, you should be able to hand them off to a human. But some of these things actually are not high severity issues. And often we get customer feedback, even, for example, to our customer support lines that basically are like product feedback. They're like, well, I don't like the color of the button, and I wish that GPT-4 is a little faster. And so we don't actually need a human to necessarily answer those types of questions. And so we actually can automate some part of the distribution of customer support tickets that we get. And we can always provide a very personal and very nice response to those users that increases customer satisfaction. And then the last is thinking about your playbook. So every company has a customer support playbook. It basically is the policies and rules that dictate how they handle each individual issue that comes up. But one of the challenges is keeping your customer support playbooks updated. So as you release new products, or even as you encounter new issues that customers raise, you don't really know. There's got to be someone that's taking that individual ticket from a sea of tickets and saying, okay, I'm going to take the information here and I'm going to go back into the customer support playbook and rewrite the playbook to reflect this specific case. And that's a really hard task for a human, and most companies just give up and they just don't do it. Their playbook gets written and they just keep it that way and they rewrite it once a year or something like that. But why can't you just rewrite it continuously? If you can summarize the customer support tickets that you get on a continuous basis, and then actually basically compare that against the information in your playbook automatically, and then ask the model to actually update those playbooks for you based on the new information it's seen, that's actually a very good use of GPT-4. And so that would be an example of like where you can actually change the shape of how you do customer support without actually having to automate all of customer support.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and also here at we at the Rakuten are also thinking about how we build the flywheel, right? Sometimes AI take the front seat, sometimes it passes to the human, and the AI become an assistant in the background. Then together, human and AI can update the playbook, if you will, right? So, yeah, thank you. Any other question?
Could we take some more questions? Yes, please, Alex.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Brad, and thank the OpenAI team to give us this opportunity, this amazing opportunity to discuss together. So in my mind, I think it's a no-brainer that generative AI has tremendous potential and opportunity for businesses, as you said before, but I think for the humankind as a whole. When we think about such a quick growth and such amazing potential, I think it always comes also to sustainability. We've seen recently, I think, businesses had lots of issues, to get GPUs, for example, if we talk about the supply chain. But one other important topic was also the environment and the impact of such, huge model on the environment, on energy consumption and so forth. So as OpenAI and I think as a world leader in generative AI, what are your thoughts on that and your thought on tackling these kind of challenges in the future?
Well, the future systems are no doubt going to put strain on us as a society and our ability to deliver renewable, sustainable power required to run these systems. It's part of the reason we're actually starting to have this conversation now, which is what does it look like to actually start to scale systems out into the 2030s that we think will be required to run models at the scale that we would like to run them. And I suspect that we'll be able to use renewables for a lot of it. We may actually have to go find new technology. Our hope is that there's actually some sort of full circle thing here where the AI actually can help us discover new ways to actually build, whether it's fission or fusion reactors, solar, wind, and other renewable sources. And we actually almost kind of use AI to somewhat power AI. So that's obviously aspirational, but it's a good point, and it's something that we really think is an important conversation to start now.
Maybe let me add to it. I think sometimes you can use the problem to solve the problem in the sense that you can use AI to save energy. So one thing we at Rakuten Mobile is trying is to leverage AI model to predict, hey, when is a low power consumption period, right? And therefore you can shut down the antenna or lower the power consumption of antenna, therefore saving energy. So, but more needs to be done in this area. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Kubo-san in the second row, please.
Good evening, and thank you very much for your presentation. And first of all, congratulations for launching Japan office.
Thank you.
my question is as OpenAI, what are the key priorities in the product development, especially in area like AI, whether where technology is advancing so fast? What specific priorities and elements are do you emphasize in your organization structure and investments? We would like to utilize your comment to to enhance our technology methods. Thank you.
Just to make sure I understand the question, is it around kind of how we think about product development as the AI systems get better? Great. This is actually a really critical one. So it goes back a little bit to the analogy I gave earlier, which is these systems becoming almost like assistants to everyone on Earth. And their capabilities expanding also. So there's going to have to be new interfaces to these technologies. I think those are both software and hardware interfaces. So I suspect the way that we use the technology in 5 years or 10 years won't really look anything like the way we use it today, partly because the interface will have changed. There'll be some new actual physical access point to the technology, but then also because the way that we use computers will not necessarily be the way we've used computers in the past. So the idea of having kind of a keyboard and a mouse and a graphical user interface isn't necessarily the right way to use AI, right way to use a computer in a world where you have really powerful AI systems. So we are going to have to rethink this in some form. Sora is actually a great example. So our video model, we've taken Sora around the world and shown it to as many creatives as we can, and we've asked for their feedback. And one of the things that we've seen in that process is we actually, the idea of just inputting text and generating video is actually not sufficient for what many people want to use Sora for. What they really want almost is like an interface that kind of has like dials and knobs, and you can be very specific about, I want to change this element of this scene and I want to replace this thing here. And they almost want to kind of recompose video in real time. And that's actually not something that's really elegant to do just through a text interface. So that's part of our challenge, is thinking about not only building the models, but exposing them into new interfaces so that everyone from developers to creatives to professionals at work can use them effectively. But I think that the result will be that there are really a lot of new technologies and a lot of new interfaces that get built, and I'm personally very excited for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last question, please. Yes, Uejima-san in the black.
Okay, thank you very much, Brad, for this opportunity. I would like to ask a very broad question. So, how do you envision the future or future development of AI? And actually, what kind of changes should we expect in our daily life as a result? And then maybe it could be anything which may sound like science fiction, anything.
Okay, I can give you my far out prediction also. I'll say, I'll try and kind of answer that in two ways. So the first is, I think fundamentally, like, this technology changes your relationship with machines. I think a good example is a child born today will never really understand a machine that they can't talk to, that doesn't feel personal, and that they can't almost have like a human-like relationship with, where they instruct it to do something and it goes off and does it. In kind of the same way that if you handed a child today like any sort of piece of technology that didn't have a touch screen, they would touch it and it would be unclear why it wasn't responding when you touch it. And so it kind of changes human behavior weirdly, and I think that's the kind of the mark of where technology kind of has taken a step function kind of leap forward, is when the expectations around what the physical engagement with that technology can do have changed. And so I think in the future, that's kind of where I see it going, is everyone will have this assistant. It'll be this very personal assistant. It can do things for you that are very useful. It can go off and it can be a teacher. It can kind of be your doctor. It can be your friend. It can be your coworker. And it can also go do a lot of the annoying and the mundane tasks that you have to do every day, like pay your taxes. But fundamentally, it will be personal to you, and it will live everywhere. So almost every kind of machine that you can engage with, you can invoke it, and it really will know that it's talking to you, and it'll be able to go off and do things for you. Maybe the more out there prediction, and the second part of the answer is, there's, I think, a very interesting long-term element of cross-engagement with robotics here. So if you think about what these models can do fundamentally is they're now becoming very good reasoners, visual reasoners, and they actually can take input from their physical surroundings and understand the world in a physical sense in addition to understanding language and code and other things. And it's not a far leap, I think, to imagine a world where you can kind of take that visual cognition and effectively put it in a robot and then kind of just have a robot really start to physically understand how to engage with the world. And I think that's been maybe one of the great challenges in robotics. And we started very early in robotics back in 2017, 2018. We had a hand that we tried to train to solve a Rubik's Cube, which we did. But it was really, really hard because we really had to kind of teach that behavior versus the model kind of just learning the behavior from trying it multiple times. And so that's, I think, where there's potentially kind of an interesting like long-term thing that no one's thinking about is actually robotics are going to start to work really, really well.
Maybe the models today can watch a video, then learn how to do robotics,
For
can
sure.
figure out how to do it, right? Yeah. So I also see people from Rakuten Travel, Rakuten Ichiba here. Any question you want to ask?
Hello, my name is Koki. I'm from Rakuten Travel. One question about future investment in reshaping user interface between AI and humans. I have one question. So, as you said, the current way of accessing information, like through the browser or internet, is the way we invented like long time ago. Now we have like trained model, which is, as you said, is the slowest model in the world to access information. Will you invest in reshaping user interface between robot, AI and human completely so that we can actually talk to them or like in some new format?
I think that will happen. I don't know on what timeline, but one interesting way to think about that, for example, is what if every interface on a device was just synthetically generated specific to the request? So you actually stare at a blank screen until you start a conversation. And then as you start a conversation, whatever information that you need specific to that conversation is rendered in real time. There's kind of not technically a reason why that couldn't happen. And that's a completely different interface than we understand it, and it's a completely different architecture than what the internet is, which is this actually static data that basically kind of lives in the in servers that are just is effectively called over a protocol that's rendered as you submit a request. And but it's this kind of like it's not very dynamic until someone actually kind of updates that information on the back end. It doesn't necessarily have to work that way. So I think that's kind of an interesting area to think about, and maybe specific to your question. Is even for companies now that are actually starting to think about their own interfaces to users, how much of that interface is going to be static versus dynamic? And as the technology improves, how much do you shift a lot of the way that you generate information and content for your users to being kind of strictly dynamic versus strictly static?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad. In the interests of time, that will conclude tonight's session. Can we get a big round of applause, please, for Brad and Ting?
Thank you all. Thank you for all the questions, and thanks again for OpenAI team to visiting Tokyo. Congratulations again on opening the Japan office. Look forward to do more things in Japan. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who attended tonight's session. I hope you found it a valuable insight into the value that GenAI can bring in the future. Please have a wonderful evening. Thanks very much.